Hi everyone, Gene here. Welcome to the Tapping Q&A podcast, where every single week we answer the most common and uncommon questions about tapping and EFT so you can get the most out of your tapping practice, eliminate self-sabotage, and take the action that you want. Today, we're really going to be leaning into that as we figure out how to get rid of those shoulds, which really prevent us from taking the action that we want. Before we do any of that, if you could do me a favor, this calendar year, and many of you are probably tired of hearing me talking about this in the podcast, the goal is to get 9 new people tapping every single day. And this is because I want to be in a circumstance where the world is just healthier. If someone is tapping, they're going to be in a better place, which means that they're going to act in a different way, which is going to cause healing and transformation to ripple out from them. One of the easiest ways to do that is to share tapping with someone you love. So hit pause right now. Send a text message to someone, encourage them to check out the podcast, to check out some tapping resource. The easiest place to send them would be tappingpodcast.com with the entire archive of stuff there. Or if today's episode is something you know someone could really use today, please be our ambassador, pass it along. It makes a difference because at this point, the marketing budget for the podcast is word of mouth. And so if you know someone who could use this and would be enriched by it, please be our ambassador, pass it along. Thanks a lot. This is Gene Monterostelli, and welcome to the Tapping Q&A podcast recorded live to tape from Williamsburg in Brooklyn. This is episode 372, originally aired July 17th, 2019. Hi everyone, I hope this finds you well wherever you are and whatever time of day you're getting a chance to listen to this. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Today we're going to spend some time talking about creating a tool for and tapping on those shoulds that show up in our lives. That as a practitioner, I listen really carefully to the vocabulary that my clients are using because we emotionally respond to the way we describe the world, not the way the world actually is. Let me say that again. We respond emotionally to the world in the way that we describe it, not in the way that it actually is. And that's because our perception of the world is relative. Our perception of our day is relative. And our emotional response is based on that understanding. And as you know, it's super easy for us not to have a clear understanding. And one of the things that really get in the way of us being able to see the world as it is this idea of shoulds. And so whenever my client is using the word should, I always interrogate that to figure out what's going on. And so we're going to talk about that today. How we can look at those things we feel like we should be doing, how to tap for them and get them out of the way so we're making more conscious choices. Before we do that, I just wanted to give a big shout out to all of the people who are supporting the Tapping Q&A podcast. I'd like to thank Elizabeth. Elizabeth is the most recent person who has supported the podcast financially. Everybody who supports the podcast gets some extra bonuses, bonus podcasts, the opportunity to get tapping scripts written by me. Even at some levels, you can get some one-on-one time with me. And one of the things we do every single month is we take 10% of those contributions and we move them to Kiva. Kiva is a microloan service that allows us to give donations to small businesses and loans all over the world so they can continue their work. This month, the group that the donations went to support is in Paraguay, and you can hear me smiling in my voice. It's a group of women who are building a number of small businesses as a collective, which is really awesome and very powerful. And they call themselves the Mujeres Luchadoras. And if you know Spanish at all, you'll know why I love that particular thing so much. And so because of the way they named their group was part of the reason that I decided to support them. I also would like to thank the people from all over the world who've been listening to the podcast. We've been thanking by country, everywhere podcasts have been downloaded this calendar year. This week, I'd like to thank the people in the Seychelles, Libya, Uzbekistan, Venezuela, and Burkina Faso. Thank you for listening to the show, and for you all over the world who've taken some time to do this. If you would like to support the podcast, all you need to do is go to tappingqa.com/support. You will ensure the podcast keeps moving forward, growing, getting to do a lot of awesome things. We're going to start some transcript showing up on the website in the next couple of weeks because of that support. If you'd like to help that happening and receive some awesome bonuses yourself, tappingqa.com/support. One of the reasons why the word should is so problematic is should takes away, or at least it feels like it takes away, our sense of choice. Whenever I feel like I should do something, it's because something from the outside is pushing on me and telling me that this is the right choice to be making. And sometimes those shoulds come from a cultural sense of what's appropriate. Sometimes they come from a family sense of what is tradition. Sometimes they come from a place of what is right and moral. And sometimes it just comes from how we should be seen in the world. This is the way I should be because this is the appropriate thing to do. And that, as you can know, is problematic because it's moving away from us making choice and moving us to a place where it's these things that we have to be doing. And at a very base level, the reason we respond so deeply to shoulds is there's a very primitive sense that wants us to be safe. Like primarily, our emotional guidance system is about safety. It's about helping us navigate the world in a way where we're going to stay out of trouble, have our needs met, and have our wants met. And very primitively, thousands and thousands of years ago, when we lived in small tribes and were nomadic people, if we were pushed outside of the tribe, we would die. And that's not hyperbole. Like that was really the case. That the world was a much more dangerous place for us as a species who were far less advanced. And in these small groups, we needed the group to survive. We needed the group to find the appropriate amount of food, to find the shelter that we needed, to fend off the things that were dangerous. And if we didn't have that infrastructure, we would die. And so even though we no longer live in the circumstance where if we are pushed out of our tribe, it means immediate death, we are in a situation in which that sense still exists. So whenever we feel like we're going against some sort of expectation or cultural norm, there is a part of us that feels as if we are in such danger we're going to die. And that's what shoulds are. They're cultural norms. And so this part of us that thinks we're going to die if we go against cultural norms, anytime a should shows up, there's a part of us that feels as if we have to do it because of the consequences. And some of the shoulds that we're dealing with are implicit, like we just see them culturally, like we just kind of know this is the way things are, but other ones are explicit. And the explicit ones are the ones that are given to us by the people in our family, typically, because those are the people that we're growing up closest to, and our family says, we should do this. This is the right way to act. This is the right way to be. And we ingest, however those are presented to us, we ingest those as if they are true. And what I mean by true is an universal truth that must be followed. And the problem is, oftentimes the shoulds that we're picking up from the people in our family aren't actually things that we should be doing all of the time. But in many cases, the adults around us are just trying to do the best that they can, and they're trying to get us to act in a way that is useful. Children should be seen and not heard. That doesn't come from a place of saying that we shouldn't be heard. It comes from a place of adults trying to navigate a really difficult day, and noisy children make it hard to do that. And so it gets written down inside of us in such a way where we think it is this universal truth that should be followed all of the time. And so the vessels that is giving us the shoulds and the moments that is giving us the shoulds oftentimes are imperfect. And so now we are given this belief that on a base level, we think we are in danger if we don't follow, and they're not true. And that creates a lot of problems. The other thing that happens is that when we're confronted with a should, is we get put into this double bind. So oftentimes when we feel like we should do something, it isn't what we would choose. So if I do what I should be doing, then I'm letting myself down because I'm not doing the thing that I want to do. If I do the thing that I want to do, and I'm not doing the thing I should do, I'm now letting down the people or the culture or the ideas that said I should be doing this other thing. So no matter what I choose, emotionally, it's not going to work out for me because I'm either letting culture down and making myself unsafe, or I'm letting myself down because I'm not doing that thing that is right for me. And then the last part of shoulds that are really difficult is there are times in our lives in which we want to do something and the people in our lives tell us we should be doing it. And those things line up. And because we have spent a significant part of our lives conforming our will to what people around us say we should be doing, we've developed this natural resentment to having to do something, that I should be doing this thing. So that when our desire lines up with what other people are saying we should be doing, we can actually resent making the choice that is right for us because we don't want to be in a circumstance where we're doing the thing we're supposed to be doing or the thing that everyone around us is saying we should do. So inside of this, you can see all of this complication that comes along with any idea that we feel like we should be doing something. One, there's a very primitive sense that if we break away from the tribe, we're going to be in danger. Two, oftentimes the shoulds are in conflict with what we want, therefore there's no such thing as a good choice. Three, oftentimes we get shoulds that are imperfect, and we recognize it is a really bad choice, not because it's just going against our will, but it's just a bad choice, but we're carrying the cultural baggage with it. And four, we end up in a circumstance where our choices, what we should be doing, line up, and we don't want to do what we're told to do, so we start to resent and resist the thing that is best for us. So, the first thing that is most important in dealing with all of this is just to listen to the fact whenever the word should comes out of our mouth. And by becoming aware of the sense of saying, I should be doing something, or if we're telling someone else, you should be doing this, just having a little bell go off in the back of our head going, that's really interesting. This idea is being pressed upon us, and we're acting on it because there's a cultural norm. So it gives us the opportunity to immediately start interrogate it. Is this actually something that is right for us? So when I am starting to interrogate a should, the first step in the process is, after we've recognized it, is to ask ourselves according to whom or what. Why should we be doing this? Because oftentimes, as we start to interrogate this idea of this is what I should be doing, we recognize the fact that there isn't actually a specific person that's saying we should do this. It's just something that we, again, have picked up culturally in our environment. And because everybody else is acting in a particular way, it feels as if we should be doing that as well. And so I found in my own life, on the first level, if I'm able to simply recognize who or what is saying I should do it, it immediately gives me the ability to start taking the power out of the should. Either it is, there is no one saying I should do this and it's just cultural, or two, it is coming from a person or a group of people or a cultural sense that doesn't line up with who I am. And so by recognizing the fact that there's this thing saying I should do this and I don't believe in that, can take the power out of the should. And if it doesn't, we can tap for that, and we're going to do that in a moment. The second question I ask myself after I've asked whom or what has put this upon me is, who would be let down if I didn't follow through with this? And this is a slightly different question, because sometimes we are in a situation where it feels like someone in our life says we should be doing something, and if we didn't actually do it, they wouldn't be let down by it. That they are simply just giving us advice and saying this is the right thing to do, but if we choose something else, their life isn't materially impacted and they're not actually going to say anything about it to us. So taking a look at to see who would be let down if we didn't do it. And the third question is, what would happen if we didn't do it? So on one level, there is this sense of people being felt let down. On the next level, there's the question of how would the people around us respond if we didn't do this thing we felt like we should do. And again, there are times in which people might be disappointed in our choice and they continue to love us. They'll be disappointed in our choice and they'll continue walking along beside us. There are lots of times in my life where I have had people in my life who've made choices that I didn't think were best for them, but it didn't impact our relationship in any way. I just saw that they're making a choice that they now have to deal with consequences for. And so oftentimes, if we recognize the fact that there aren't specific consequences for us making this choice, it becomes easier for us to move through that thing. The fourth thing that I do is whenever I am faced with a should, is I change the word should to I choose. So for example, I should do this project today. And that has a particular sense of feeling to it because there's an emotional charge, there's responsibility, there might be resentment, whatever it is. If I change it to I choose to do this project today, I choose to reach out to this person today, I choose to present myself in this particular way, I choose to not do this thing that I want to do, because all of those would have shoulds in front of them normally, it gives us the opportunity to respond to it really differently emotionally. And oftentimes when I say, I choose to do this, I quickly realize, no, I would never choose to do this, or it's not the best thing for me to choose to do. And so by putting it into that context and thinking about it in that way, whenever I am doing something because I should be doing it, I'm actually choosing to do it. It just feels like my choice has been taken away. So by putting the sense of I choose on top of it, it makes it easier for me to escape a should. Because the moment I put I choose this, then I'm taking agency, then I recognize it's really not the best thing for me, then it becomes easier for me not to do it. So again, the steps that we can work through when we're interrogating a should to see if it's really something that is a good fit for us. First, just becoming aware that shoulds are happening and shoulds are being said and just paying attention to that. Because by recognizing it, then we get a chance to interrogate it. The questions I ask myself when I'm interrogating it, should according to whom or what, so I can see if it's the right fit or not, to see where that's coming from. Second question, who would be let down if I didn't follow through on this? 3, what would happen if I didn't follow through on this should? And 4, how would I feel if I changed the word should to choose? And oftentimes by simply working through those 4 questions after we've recognized a should, we take a lot of the power out of the should, which makes it easier for us to make a different choice. And there are other times in which we ask those questions. Intellectually, we recognize the fact that the should is not a good choice for us, that we still feel like we're being pressured to do something, even though it's not what we want. Then we reach for tapping. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to take a few moments. We're going to do a little tapping on this idea of shoulds and get ourselves a little clearer so we are not stuck in that space. So what I want you to do is tap on the side of the hand. Take a nice big deep breath for me. Take another nice big deep breath. And just move from tapping point to tapping point, repeating after me. I recognize the fact I feel like I should do this. And should is a very powerful word. When I use the word should, it feels as if I must. When I use the word should, it feels like I have to. When I use the word should, it feels as if I am out of control. And it makes sense that I feel like I should do something that someone says I should do. There is a very primitive part of me which recognizes thousands of years ago that if I was pushed out of the tribe, I would die. Staying connected to the community was a matter of life or death. Staying connected to the community was a necessity. This meant going against the grain was dangerous. This meant going against the grain was perilous. Therefore, I have learned to do what the community wants. Because at one point in history, it was a matter of life and death. But that is no longer the case. I can go my own way and survive. I can make the choices that are best for me and thrive. Because of this, the word should doesn't have to have the same power it once had. Recognizing that can be difficult. Because most of the shoulds we have been given have come from people who are close to us. And we all want to belong and be connected. Especially to those who are closest to us. I give myself permission to know that I can stay connected to my loved ones without having to do what they think I should be doing. I'm allowed to choose what I want. I am safe choosing what I want. I can remain connected to others while choosing what I want. When anyone says I should do something, I can take that as input. I can take that as something to consider. But it is nothing more than an opinion. And I can take it for as much or as little as I want. I get to choose what is right for me. Not because of a cultural norm. Not because someone else said I should do it. But simply because I want to do it. I give myself permission to let go of the word should. There is nothing I should do. There are only things that I choose to do or choose not to do. I am responsible for those choices. I am responsible for the consequences of those choices. But they are my choices. Because I choose to do them. Not because I should do them. I give give myself permission to have control over my own life and my own choices. I give myself permission to let go of should. Nice deep breath. Now, tapping for an issue like shoulds is different than tapping for other issues. So instead of letting go of something specific or decreasing an emotion or acting in a new way, when we tap for shoulds, basically what happens is the shoulds in our life start having less and less power, and we start acting more comfortably with our own agency. And in some circumstances, in some cases, you might feel an immediate release of what other people's expectations are or what you perceive other people's expectations to be, and it makes it easier for you to act. And so recognize when we do something like this, what's really going to happen is there's going to be a softening of our emotions, and there's going to be more comfort in making good, thoughtful choices. So measuring the success for tapping for shoulds is going to feel a little different than measuring for a fear. Like, I'm afraid of snakes. Now I can be around a snake and I'm okay. Like, that's something that's very digital. This is something that's going to be much more gradual. And so I would really encourage you, particularly if there are areas of your life around what the relationships you're supposed to be in are supposed to look like, or the work that you're supposed to be doing is supposed to look like, or where you're supposed to be living is supposed to look like. Give yourself permission to tap on this sense of where these shoulds are coming from over the course of a number of days, because it'll just make you more and more comfortable inside of your own skin, making it easier for you to make the choices that you want to make. For me, when shoulds are showing up, it typically doesn't show up in a way where I'm choosing things that I don't want, but instead it just creates a lot of resistance around doing what I do want. And so by tapping on this, it creates space for me to make the choices that I really want to be taking. So I'd love to hear your experience with this little tool. Give it a try. Drop me a note, Gene, Gene, at tappingqa.com. If you happen to be listening to this inside of our free Tapping Q&A app, if you click on that contact link, you can send me an email or a voicemail from right inside. If you're not listening to this inside of the Tapping Q&A app, I'd really encourage you to download that app, because in addition to having the audio like you're listening to right now, the script, which is on the website, which we just tapped through, you can also find in the app. So if you click on the text section, that's TEXT, and click on the text section in the app, you will see this tapping script and every tapping script that we have tapped along to over the course of the last couple of years, just right there inside of the app, absolutely free. If you're listening to this in the website, you will see down below the web player the opportunity for you to see the script. So you can just print that out so you don't have to listen to the audio and come back to this again. If you have questions or comments on this or anything that we should be talking about in the future, please let me know. Like I said, I can be reached, Gene, Gene, at tappingqa.com, or just click on that contact link on the website. I love hearing feedback from you. Some of the best interviews and best topics we've covered this summer have come from recommendations from listeners just like you. Again, be our ambassador. If you know someone out there who could use this today, please pass this along. Don't spam your inbox, but just send a note, send a text message. Again, you can hit pause right now and send them a text message. If you're listening to this on your phone, send them to tappingpodcast.com. The Tapping Q&A podcast. This is Gene Montrestelli. I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you real soon. Bye-bye. The Tapping Q&A podcast is copyright Gene Montrestelli, Tapping Q&A 2016. All views expressed by guests are those of the guests and not necessarily of Gene Montrestelli or Tapping Q&A.